This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, Bill Yankee.
Hey, good Monday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 1st, on April Fool's Day. And, well, that's info that came out on Friday. That was no April Fools, unfortunately. Corn planted area, 92.8 million acres, and the soybean planted acre, 84.6 million acres, not to mention the stocks reports that led to the bloodbath on Friday. It was a record day of corn volume, more than 1 million contracts going in the wrong direction, down 17 on nearbys, down a nickel for beans, down half a dozen for wheat. Half a dozen for wheat when they came out and said it's the lowest intended planted acreage in history with those records dating to 1918. We'll talk to Dale Dirk-Holes later in the program. We always talk to him on a Monday from AgriVisor. We'll also visit with Randy Holthouse, Growmark Grain Storage. We'll visit with him about what's coming up. We'll talk to him about Nebraska as well. But we'll also just preview the year, and we'll talk about getting grain out of the bins and in a good manner as well when it's finally time to sell. A lot of 19 crop has certainly not been sold yet. But first on the program, Mark Gebhardt, Executive Director of Governmental Affairs and Commodities at Illinois Farm Bureau. We'll talk state issues. We'll talk D.C. issues with Mark in just a couple of minutes on a Monday, RFD Today.
This is the story of Mrs. Clark, who has lived on this very block most of her 80 years, often seen walking to town or serving brownies to the neighborhood kids, and everyone loves her. 2 years ago, a certain family member moved in to look after Mrs. Clark, and that's when everything changed. Mrs. Clark became the victim of elder abuse.
Elder abuse is often closer to home than you think or want to believe. McGruff, the crime dog here. The National Crime Prevention Council wants you to know the signs of elder abuse. Bruises, isolation, reduced activities, poor hygiene, depression, and financial problems. Protect yourself and speak out if you recognize signs of abuse in others.
Elder abuse is a crime that affects over 2 million senior citizens every year. Even more astounding, it's most commonly committed by a family member or someone they trusted. If you suspect abuse, contact your local law enforcement agency. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689 or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
Clean water matters to all of us. For years, farmers have been calling for clean water and clear rules because we know it's possible to have both. Now is the time to make your voice heard. The proposed clean water rule announced by the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps would end years of uncertainty over where federal jurisdiction begins and ends. Support the new rule. Text WATERS to 52886. That's WATERS to 52886 and contact your local county farm bureau for more information.
40 years of horses, 40 years of legends. It's the Midwest Horse Fair.
Best horse fair in the nation right here.
This is fun for families because there's so many different aspects of horses that they can see.
And there's top-of-the-line clothing and apparel and boots and hats and ropes and trinkets and gifts. The shopping is off the charts here. I hope you guys are ready because this is going to get wild.
It's the great Midwest Horse Fair.
April 12th through the 14th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Visit MidwestHorseFair.com for more.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Joining us over the phone is the Executive Director of Governmental Affairs and Commodities for Illinois Farm Bureau, Mark Gebhardt. How are you, sir?
Good morning, DeLoss. I'm a recovering Cardinal fan this weekend. It was a tough weekend. I'm tired of watching Christian Yelich hit home run after home run. Other than that, I'm fine.
Paul Goldschmidt hit a couple, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He looked pretty good, so I guess I shouldn't complain.
Yeah. But
losing 3 out of 4 was kind of tough.
Yeah, Christian Yelich is on a pace to hit 162 home runs this season, which is just absurd. I think first guy to ever do it, a home run in 4 consecutive games in the first few games of the season. So, that could be quite a bit. All right, so let's talk state first, if we could. So now here we are into April. So I assume whatever crunch time is would be starting to approach in Springfield, isn't it?
Well, that's true. We're starting to see some potential amendments start to take shape on bills that we're monitoring and very involved in. There's really about a half a dozen bills that could have tremendous impact on our membership that we're watching very closely. And a couple of those, we're still waiting to see just exactly which direction the sponsors decide to go with those. One of those would be with respect to the Livestock Management Facilities Act. Senator Kaler has Senate Bill 1481. That's a bill that amends the Livestock Management Facilities Act to basically give counties the local control and jurisdiction over siting. We know there have been some conversations with various entities about potential amendments to that bill. I think that bill is going to look very, very different than it does today. So that one's still kind of in the wait-and-see mode. And then we're also watching another one and trying to work with the sponsors there. It's House Bill 2839. Representative Gon Gershowitz has this bill. And this is a bill that you recall we talked a lot about the loss from last year when Senator Raoul had a similar bill, which basically this bill gives standing to anyone to issue suit against a state agency for a jurisdictional or administrative decision that they might have made. So in essence, what does that mean? It means that if someone's in Chicago and is not happy with a siting that was done with respect to a livestock facility, they can issue suit and have standing to do so because they feel they've been harmed by this decision for whatever reason. So you can see this as a really bad bill, in our opinion, and one that we certainly want to try and either make go away or get changed. So that's a couple of examples. There's 3 or 4 others that we're watching as well.
You know, with Livestock Management Facilities Act, if I already have existing buildings and I want to upgrade facilities, is that required? Do I have to do certain things under the Act as well? And could those then also be in jeopardy? So we're not just talking about expansion, but we're just talking about maintaining what we currently have?
Well, yeah, the expansion provisions are certainly there is a procedure, there is a process by which expansion can and must occur under the auspice of the Livestock Management Facilities Act. As far as some general upkeep on buildings and things of that nature, that starts to fall into a little different category. Of course, if you do make changes to the waste management, manure management, handling aspects of the facility, those sorts of things, some of those can also do come into play with respect to the LMFA. So it kind of depends on what changes and what amendments you try to make to a facility, but each one kind of becomes its own issue depending on what you're trying to do.
Now, what about the notion, especially the issue toward income taxes? To get on the Constitution, what kind of timeline needs to take place? Does it have to happen necessarily these next couple of months?
Yeah, so that's another big issue that we're certainly involved in, and we have strong opposition to the graduated income tax proposal that Governor Pritzker has put out here, the progressive tax. It has a couple of different names, but as you indicate, this would have to be a constitutional amendment, so the General Assembly would have to pass this out in order to get it put on the Constitution. The timeline, of course, would be for something to occur as you look down the road at the election cycle. They would really need to get something done here, in this session in order for it to kind of play through the process. But, we've been working with Business Coalition and others who have concern and opposition to the proposal. I think, it's safe to say for the membership that might be listening, we anticipate if this continues to progress, as we think it might through this session, then you can anticipate probably a call to action on that here in the not-too-distant future, because we want to weigh in very strongly in our opposition to this progressive tax idea.
Given the numbers that take place, or the numbers that exist within the State House, just your overall feelings. I mean, it seems like things could go in pretty rapid at a rapid pace at this point. Is that conceivable?
Well, as we've talked again many times in the past, and it's certainly no secret to anyone who's lived in this state for a number of years, that we continue to have some very serious financial and fiscal challenges. And I think that overarching, landscape, that issue is out here in terms of how people are trying to look for a way forward, including the governor, to try and find some solutions to our fiscal challenges. Many people do seem to have the opinion, as we visit with people in the Capitol, that this progressive tax idea might be one of those solutions. But we certainly see a lot of concern with it, the impact that it could and will have, in terms of our business climate. And there's just a lot of unanswered questions around it in terms of again, how is it really going to be implemented and impact people with respect to where they may fall, in their income ranges and so forth. But it becomes a huge business issue, I think, for a lot of our folks.
Yeah. Hang on a second, Mark. We have a commercial coming up here. Hang on just a second. Mark Gebhard's at Illinois Farm Bureau joining us on RFD today.
With this week's edition of Farm Week, the early word. Here's Rita Frazier.
As a critical care nurse, Cook County Farm Bureau President Janet McCabe remains focused on patient care while trying to help make health care more affordable for farmers. Learn more in the latest Farm Week about her efforts as a member of the Illinois Farm Bureau's Health Care Working Group. Flooding conditions in Illinois could worsen in this week's edition of Farm Week. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Climate Prediction Center estimates the state faces an elevated risk of flooding through the month of May.
No other Farm Weekly in Illinois has as many people on the ground in Illinois covering Illinois agriculture for you with the depth on key issues to help keep you profitable. And don't forget, you can get daily or even more frequent updates online anytime at farmweeknow.com.
Hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and Delosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
I used to say I was an Illinois Farm Bureau member because it gives us farmers a voice in Washington. Then there was a bad regulation proposed in my community. That's when I learned what my county Farm Bureau does for me right here in my own backyard. From giving scholarships to local kids to tackling township or zoning concerns, Farm Bureau starts right here. And now, that's why I say I'm a member.
Call your county Farm Bureau and rediscover your grassroots power.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
If you're hearing this, you should be concerned about the Asian longhorn beetle, an invasive species that's destroying our trees. But you can help. Look for the signs and help stop the beetle.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Some signs of the ALB are dime-sized holes on tree trunks, a sawdust-like material called frass, and the beetle itself, with a long black body and white spots.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Learn all the signs and how to report them at AsianLonghornedBeetle.com. That's AsianLonghornedBeetle.com.
All right, welcome back. This is RFD Today on a Monday. We're visiting with Mark Gebhardt, Illinois Farm Bureau Executive Director of Governmental Affairs and Commodities. I want to ask you about a couple federal things, and unfortunately, these are the federal things we have been talking about, especially trade, Mexico and Canada and China. Hopefully, we can have some sort of resolution in both of those trade agreements.
Well, we certainly hope so, and we certainly need progress on both fronts, DeLoss. And let's talk maybe about China first. I think so far so good is kind of how we, summarize what's been occurring with the talks. Our trade negotiators just returning from China from meetings over there this past week, and the Chinese premier will be here in the United States in Washington on Wednesday. So it's certainly good news that these talks continue. I know the targeted date now to reach an agreed-to deal with the Chinese with respect to our way forward with the tariffs and so forth is the end of April, and we certainly hope that comes to fruition. It can't be soon enough for our markets and to try and hopefully have a positive impact on the farm economy. So we keep our fingers crossed, and again, everyone we've talked to in Washington as we really visit on a fairly regular basis, just about every other day, about folks on this front with USDA. It continues to at least look like progress is being made. So we anticipate that will continue. With respect to the ratification of the USMCA agreement with regard to Canada and Mexico, this unfortunately kind of continues to be the political football, and it's a political issue that obviously leadership in both chambers have to agree to take up this ratification and get this vote scheduled. The timeline on this, I think, is a little fuzzy, and it's really being impacted by a host of other things. One of those, of course, being the border security and immigration issues that continue to play out down on the Mexican border. I know that leadership in the Democratic-controlled House certainly has things they'd like to see done, and there is obviously still friction between the President Trump, and Speaker Pelosi over that issue and how it's being handled. And I think, unfortunately, that kind of, again, comes back and impacts the USMCA ratification. But the other important part of all of this is the Section 232 tariffs and the fact that those have to get lifted. Because even if our Congress ratifies this agreement, it's been made very clear by both the Canadian and Mexican governments that they will not ratify it unless the Section 232 tariffs are lifted. So still a lot of work to be done there, and again, we continue to stay focused on that.
Well, we saw Friday prospective plantings numbers, and you take North and South Dakota combined, and their corn expected acreage was up 1.6 million. Mainly because they can't sell soybeans from last year. Why would they plant that many soybeans this year? So I feel like that was a direct impact of the China deal in particular.
Well, I would agree with you, and I know you'll probably visit with Dale Dirkholz here after our visit, so Dale would certainly be able to weigh in on that in a more expert way than I can. But I do agree that is a result, at least as it appears now, from the tariffs and the impact that this is having. And so those planting intentions that came out last week, obviously that has an impact, is having an impact on our markets and with respect to the corn and soybean side of things. And so, this is real, continues to be a factor in our farm economy, and something that, again, we hope we can find a way forward here. Hopefully by the end of the month we can put some of these Chinese issues behind us.
All right, what else in D.C. beyond trade?
Well, I think the other thing I'd just remind listeners, if they haven't submitted comments with respect to the Clean Water Rule, that continues to be out there on the federal side, and we've had about 1,700 of our members issue comments. We're very appreciative of that, but we really like to get upwards of around 2,500. So if 700 or 800 more folks out there that are listening could just take 5 or 6, 10 minutes and put some comments forward, we'd really appreciate it. These comments do mean something. They do matter. The U.S. EPA will take them into account as we look at getting this Clean Water Rule proposal finalized in the months ahead. And it's really important that be done the right way so that farmers are not negatively impacted by something with unintended consequences when you look at some of the definitions and how these waters, affect us on the farm. So I would just remind the folks to take the time to do that.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks, right? That's the 15th?
It's the deadline on that's coming fast, and the 15th, I believe, is the cutoff. So, before everybody goes crazy here with field work, it looks like we've got some nice weather coming here after another rain shower midweek. But temperatures will start warming up. People are going to start getting awfully busy. So now's the time to get those comments filed.
All right. Boy, that to-do list never seems to, you scratch one off, but you add two on, don't you?
Well, it sure seems that way, especially on both state and federal side. And on the state side, as we visited earlier, we only talked about two or three of the issues, but there's really several others out there that we're watching very closely. I did participate in a broadband meeting. I can tell you there's a lot of focus and attention on trying to improve broadband access around the state. That's something, of course, our members in areas that are underserved certainly want to see better access. Meanwhile, we've got to make sure property rights are protected. So as we went to that meeting, we were kind of there for a twofold purpose. One, to make sure that, again, we want to be encouraging and supportive of improved broadband access, but at the same time protect property rights as fiber optic cable and other things are laid on our landowners' property that they're duly taken care of in that regard. So that's something I think you can anticipate seeing down the road a lot more attention to.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty.
Appreciate it.
Sounds good. My pleasure as always. Thanks.
Mark Gebhardt is Illinois Farm Bureau. Stay tuned. We'll have more to come on a Monday, RFD Today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of riding expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Yes, I listen to a lot of talk radio, but I wouldn't call myself a political junkie. I guess that's why I like being a member of the Illinois Farm Bureau. No matter what my comfort level is, Farm Bureau has something for me and my farm. As an Illinois Farm Bureau member, I can pick and choose what's best for me, from reading election news and Farm Week to actually going to Washington. That's enough to make me a policy nut after all.
Call your county farm bureau and customize your membership today.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program, with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/farm bureau.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All Now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. All right, welcome back to RFD today on a Monday. I'm DeLoss Yonke. It's time for what will likely be my final interview with Randy Holthouse, Growmark Grain Systems. Randy, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'll bet you're doing
better every day.
So, Randy, in a couple of weeks, will be retired and have a different to-do list to deal with.
Absolutely. Start living life on my terms, on my schedule.
How many years?
43 years with the FS system.
Wow. That's fantastic. It's tremendous.
It's been an incredible experience, an incredible ride, and I guess the thing that makes it the most impactful and I guess, the most rewarding thing about it has been the great people and the great stories.
Mm-hmm.
The stories are what make, life such an incredible experience.
How much, most of that was in Illinois, wasn't it? There's some in Iowa?
8.5 years in northeast Iowa, up near Decorah, was where I started with a Northeast Farm Service. And then in 1984, Growmark moved my family and I to the Knoxville-Galesburg area, and we spent about 12 years there. And then in 96, we came in here to corporate in Bloomington.
Now, before we get talking about Illinois and talking about some current local issues, I want to ask you about Nebraska or Iowa or anybody flood impacted, for that matter. I mean, you see these videos, you see these pictures of grain bins that have just collapsed on themselves. So the cleanup for that sort of thing, I mean, how do you even start on that, especially if the ground's still wet? You can't come in with a skid steer, let alone a massive front-end loader to get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, that is one of the most devastating things to see. I mean, not only are you losing the crop you had stored, but the infrastructure that you have in place to store it. The bin is destroyed, the crop is destroyed, and you can't even get to it to do anything about it. And as the water starts to recede, of course, beans, when they swell up and get rotten, nothing smells worse than that. And corn likewise, and I don't know what you do with it. I mean,
that was my question. What would you do with a massive pile of grain like that?
I mean, I know there's salvage companies that take damaged grain, but at that point, I don't know if you just dig a hole and bury it, or I'm not sure what the move forward plan is there. I'm sure there's some of the emergency services probably have some type of a procedure or protocol, but I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm. And then at some point, 'cause like you said, that could take a while. So can you even, could it be conceivable that this year I can't build back there because I by the time I get ready to plant or get ready to put in a new bin, will I be able to make it within, however long that kind of time frame takes?
Well, one of the nice things about a grain bin is it does go up relatively quickly. I mean, if you're not the bins that I've seen destroyed in the news seem to be more on the farm end, 36s, 48s, things like that. They go up relatively quickly. And I know when we had the inland hurricane that came across, or I forget what they call it, but it was hurricane-like winds that went across central Iowa, northern Illinois. And the grain bin industry seems to be able to react to emergencies somewhat. I mean, in the past, they've reacted fairly well. There is some excess production capabilities in the industry. Whether or not, whether or not they could get some emergency bins out there and get them built, the labor force is probably going to be the bigger challenge. Is there anybody to actually build them? Because the industry is pretty busy right now. So. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It remains to be seen, how we can react and how we can help those folks out.
Wow, just awful.
Yeah. There's always something like that out there, and it never gets easy.
So you mentioned busy time. So you guys hit the ground running this year for projects.
Yeah. There's a lot of projects. I think I've probably seen more large-scale farm projects on the table this year than I've ever seen. Literally a dozen projects that I've assisted with in the country are in excess of $1 million projects, storage, drying, handling, and, as soon as the ground is fit, there's dirt being moved right now where it's dry enough where construction is going to be started. And literally in some areas, I know on the commercial side, we've been busy all winter. I mean, we've kept concrete crews busy even through the polar vortex and all that. We, you may have shut down for a few days, but we hammered right through it. Construction is moving forward.
Well, Joe Camp at AgriVisor mentioned to Rita Friday that less than 10% of 2019 grain has been marketed. Wow. That's a low number, which also, I assume, that kind of goes hand in hand of that hold it and
drive storage demand. And, that's the thing is we hear those kinds of numbers, and then you got to remember there's probably some carryover from last year yet. There's always this multiple year carryover in recent years that, we just can't build enough storage to handle an impact like that.
That's difficult. Well, yeah, you hear these stocks numbers.
Yeah.
Record stocks numbers. And, you're talking about 900 million bushels of soybeans, for example, let alone the corn numbers. You just think, well,
right,
who's holding it and how do we we still have to move. Let's move that, before we even have a 2019 crop.
I know the thumb rule for managing a crop. I mean, if we just started with no bushels out there stored, and the crop that we grow every year, the thumb rule is it takes 125% of the crop to manage the crop anyway, because it's always in flux. It's never in the right place. You get your piles all over the countryside and all that. So, getting it into the right place, into the right time so that it is all stored, the thumb rule is 125% of the crop.
Yeah, plenty. Unfortunately. Randy Holthouse, more to come with Randy, and then Dale Dirkholz after that. So to Monday, RFD today.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Daniel Grant connects rural routes for you. With more than 2 decades of reporting under his belt, Dan is the go-to source for farmers when it comes to commodities. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a grain and livestock farm near Roseville in Warren County. What I love about my job is working with people, traveling across Illinois, and visiting farms along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
It's where your home is built, your landscape is planted, and your children play. Land is all around us, so Illinois farmers have dedicated years to learning how to best care for it. Today, we're bridging modern knowledge with resources from Mother Nature to promote natural soil activity and choosing crops that enhance soil health. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We're 4 cents better for corn. We're up 7 cents for soybeans and a nickel for wheat. May corn up 4 3/4, 361 1/4. July up 4, 370 1/4. December up 3 1/2, 388 1/4. May soybeans up 7 1/2, 891 3/4. July up 7 1/2, $9.05 1/4. November up 7, 926. Soybean gains actually are more than Friday's losses in beans. Friday we lost a nickel. Right now we're up 7. May wheat up 5 1/4, 463. July up a nickel, 468 1/2. April hogs up 47, 77.85. May down 1/4, 81 7 cents. April cattle up 82, 126.52. While June's up 95, 115.95. This is the RFD Radio Network.
Years of horses, 40 years of legends. It's the Midwest Horse Fair.
Best horse fair in the nation right here.
This is fun for families because there's so many different aspects of horses that they can see.
And there's top-of-the-line clothing and apparel and boots and hats and ropes and trinkets and gifts. The shopping is off the charts here. I hope you guys are ready because it's going to get wild.
It's the great Midwest Horse Fair.
April 12th through the 14th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Visit MidwestHorseFair.com for more.
Welcome back to RFD today. On Monday, I'm DeLoss Yankee. Randy Holthouse is in Growmark Grain Systems. So, last week was Grain Handling Safety Week.
Yes.
I would always get those words. I would always say Grain Safety Handling Week. Grain Handling Safety Week. So if we still have, a full bin from last year, hopefully that is in good shape whenever we turn those bins on to move them out, whenever we turn the augers on.
Right. That's always the danger zone, is especially the longer the grain has been stored, the higher the likelihood that it is bridged up or went out of condition somewhere in there. And that's when we see the engulfments happen. And for gosh sakes, we had some training 2 weeks ago for our grain systems salespeople and service people and the construction folks, and we talked about why bins fail. And, a lot of it has to do with improper usage. And, when grain is flowing into an unloader, it has no capability to support you. It is literally like quicksand or worse. And, it will swallow you up in a matter of a second or two. And, it's just a bad deal. So, if your grain is bridged, if your grain is not flowing, getting in there is not the answer.
Yeah.
Unless you have a death wish.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
The truck can wait.
Sounds harsh, but it's as harsh as that. Yeah.
I don't care how ornery the truck driver might get for having to wait or whatever it takes, but you need to find the safe alternative to getting in the bin, because there's just too many deaths occurring.
Okay, so if I have moisture, if I have clump or clod or something like that, that's really impacting the way the augers are able to go, then what options do I have?
Vac it out from the top, find something to poke at it from the top. There are alternatives, and, we just can't. The other thing is, if it's plugged in the center, you don't want to be unloading from the intermediate wells either, because you can damage or even destroy your bin by doing it that way. There aren't a lot of good answers, but there's always an answer. I guess step back, take time, reach out to some experts, and come up with a plan with multiple parties involved. At least it'll be safer, but don't just get in and, don't fall under that, gotta go. The truck will wait. If the truck driver gets mad and leaves, let him leave.
Right. We find another one.
You'll find another one, and figure out a safe alternative, figure out an alternate plan, and then move forward. But do it meticulously, do it well planned, and do it with multiple parties.
One of the problems, if grain starts to turn at any point during storage season, it's awfully hard to, or it may not, hopefully not impossible, but it's awfully hard to get it back if something's gone bad in the bin over however many months of storage.
Well, hopefully with all of the weather changes and everything, we've been up looking at our grain, monitoring it, making sure that it has not gone out of condition. If you have temp cables, I trust you've been looking at them. If you do see indications of a problem, crusting on top, steam coming out of the bin, frost on the underside of the bin roof, you need to get that heating cooled down. So you got to get air through it. That's first and foremost. So, get it cooled down if you can. I know a lot of people like to freeze their grain or, get it below freezing. We don't recommend that. I know it keeps the grain in great condition, but if any of it freezes together, it's a solid mass. It'll never get air through it again. Likewise, if it does freeze into a chunk, it can plug your sumps, causing unload problems. You just got to be aware. You got to be monitoring. You got to be keeping an eye on it at all times.
If I was trying to run air through it, and you had a clog like that, would I even be able to detect that? Or would I just keep running air?
It's very hard to detect. If you detect a problem, all you can do is aerate until you can eliminate or acknowledge that the problem has been solved. But it's difficult without temp cables or without any type of monitoring system. It's really a kind of a guess, because you have no visibility.
Well, all that we put into producing a crop, hopefully when it's time to move it, it's there for you.
Your payday doesn't come until that grain moves out and you get paid for it. Otherwise you're just sitting there. It's in the bank, but it's not just sitting there protected like in the bank. It's at risk every day that it's out there. And, we really don't want you to get it below freezing, because when it's time to aerate, if you don't get a chance to aerate until it's warm and humid, if your grain is 40 degrees, it's going to sweat.
By the way, you mentioned several $1 million projects, and I assume one of the things that made those $1 million projects, one, it's a lot of steel, but when it costs 25% more than we'd prefer that it did, that helps run the price tag up pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, the steel market has done nothing but continue to stay strong. The discounts that we've been typically seeing through the winter pretty much get eaten up by all of the market challenges, and it's just been we've seen very little savings in the grain bin market because of the steel prices. So it's a challenge all the way around.
To me, it helps underline how important this is for farmers to try to have more control over their own storage.
Right.
That they're willing to do these projects even in the face of such higher steel costs.
Right. It's a challenge, and the need is there. Every project we've been out on has been all about speeding up the process, becoming more efficient. Faster receiving, faster drying. Enabling to get the tillage done. Being able to start earlier. There's so many of the needs and the demands of being in the business and becoming more efficient and more profitable. And every time they seem to turn around, there's a new increase on top of it. And the commodities just sit there. They don't seem to get any better.
You probably have a couple of guys saying, where are we going to put another one?
Well,
but by golly, we've got to get another one in here somehow.
Yeah. When they don't like taking it to town and paying to store it, and they don't like paying to dry it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of guys that have taken that next big step. They've stood pat for a long time. The system has started to age, and now they have sons coming into the business, or the sons want to grow, and they need to make everything bigger and more efficient. Yeah. And that's what's driving it.
Well, if you would have seen all the exposed wires we had when I was grinding Milo back in the day, that was one that was in need of improvement. And that was just a slight change, let alone these big dollar changes that are taking place. Hey, congratulations!
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. If we don't see you between now
and it's always been a joy and a pleasure to work with the farm community and with you folks, and always a blast. It's been a great ride.
Randy Holthouse at Growmark. Stay tuned. We'll talk grain next with Dale Dirkholz on a Monday, RFD Today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Special feeder sale Thursday. Fairview Sale Barn brought in more than 1,100 head. 6-weight steers had an average of 152, topped at 177. 7 weights, 135 for an average, top of 159 1/4. Had a load lot at 746 pounds at 158. Had a load lot of 802 pounds, bringing 143 1/4. 5-weight heifers average 142, top of 162. 6 weights average 132, top of 148. Illinois Direct Hog Market Friday was up another $2. $46 to $55 a hundredweight. That market has really taken off in the past couple of weeks. Sow market was mostly steady, 29 to 36 for lightweights, 34 to 43 for heavyweights. Heavy boars with a top of 12. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today. I'm DeLoss Yankee. This is Dale Durkholz, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor. Now, when I was saying OL apostrophe. That's what I was saying. I said we had old Randy Holtelsen, now we have old Dale Durkholz. So OL apostrophe, that's just like that good old boy, that sort of thing.
I just added the T.
43 years for Randy. How many years for you?
33.
33. Gotcha.
Not quite. June 30th would be 33.
33. Wow. So, Friday, Bloodbath Friday. Was it the plantings numbers? Was it the stocks numbers? Was it a combination of both? The stocks numbers didn't look good at all, did they?
All of the above.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
the corn stocks number was, in one sense, I think the corn stocks number was worse than the planting number, because the corn stocks number basically, in one sense, said we found roughly another 300 million bushels, somewhere close to that. So instead of having carryouts at 1.8, now you're sitting here going, implying, okay, carryout will be over 2 billion again. The one thing I've kind of looked at, not a lot yet, but as I've had time, reminds me of 2010. 2010, we had a stocks number that was a little negative in March, and then it was bullish in June, and then negative in September, and it's just that was a mess, But when you look at the residual there of the stocks number, going back to the feed and residual, we're down somewhere around 250 plus million from last year. We did that with more livestock numbers. We did that with the coldest winter since back in the 1980s, probably. And you're going, wait a minute. What did cattle eat and hogs eat? Air?
Right.
And
surely
so
we're still feeding them.
The feed and residual number doesn't make a lot of sense. You can say, well, it's residual, which would imply that, in part of it, last year's crop was underestimated. So in February, they took us down 2.5 bushels, and now they're going to add back 3 bushels.
One of the questions
it's just they've got a lot of questions they've got to answer, and
So this was as of March 1,
right?
Which included Nebraska corn stalks, just a little more than 1 billion on March 1. Well, what's that number going to be in June 1 after they clear? By then, when some of this rubble has been moved from the floods. Because, how much is spoiled?
You probably won't lose as much as you think.
Yeah.
You really won't. You go, it depends on how soon you get back into the places and get the stuff moved out and stuff, but you'll probably lose less than you really understand at this point. Yeah, you'll lose the bottom layer, but, once you start emptying a bin, what'll happen is you will empty that bin, and the first load, 2 loads, whatever, pulling off the bottom of it, it's going to have a lot of garbage in it. Once you get that out of the way, you're probably going to pull pretty good corn and pretty good beans out of that bin. And, you're going to have losses, don't get me wrong. But
not extreme.
You were talking, Nebraska had 1 billion. What are you going to lose? 50 million, maybe 20 million, maybe just 10 million, probably 10 million bushel. And that's, it looks devastating, it looks bad, but when you realistically understand it, if you can get into it relatively quick, get the stuff moved out, and you're going to have losses off the bottom of the bins, but maybe not as bad as you think.
Well, I was talking to Mark Gebhards about this. To me, the glaring numbers of that planting for corn was the Dakotas up 1.6 million acres from last year. You can't sell soybeans the way you'd like to, so what are you going to do? So apparently you're going to plant more corn.
That's a whole game that's going to be in flux at this point, too. It's the Chinese thing probably drove an awful lot of that. On Twitter, I reposted or retweeted some acreage maps that I ran across here the last couple of days. You've got a big switch up in the Dakotas, but in the end, will we end up planting it? Who knows? Spring wheat acreage, instead of being up, was down. That really kind of surprised me at this point, and that was as of March 1 or even late February. So there's a lot of lot of time for things to change, but we do know this, with what happened in the Dakotas here, or what's going on in the Dakotas, we're just now getting rid of some snow melt. And, the weather forecasts, when you look at the new 30-day outlooks that were out on Friday afternoon, basically central Illinois west was going to be above normal moisture for the month of April. So the whole question comes down, how quick are we going to plant anywhere?
Right.
I mean, look at the amount of rain we had here over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
2.5, 3 inches, a lot of places.
One of those good soaking rains at a time where you didn't want it at all,
Right.
And you still see water
and you
running.
got some coming behind it. So, the planting's going to get off the mark. I think that's part of the reason we're seeing the market here this morning show some gains. Part of it's a response to the break we had Friday, but beans up 10.
Apparently China bought beans.
Corn's up a nickel. Yeah, they bought
828,000 tons for this year.
800,000 tons. There was also a rumble around coming out of China. They may be closer to signing off on a trade deal than we know.
Oh, make it happen.
Don't know about that, but all those are into the mix here at this point. The one thing that's kind of surprising, we had some teens down in Oklahoma and Kansas City wheat's only up 3 cents.
Wow. Teens in April? That's not good. They had a bad year last year. That's not good 2 years in a row. The old Eric Holstead Agrivisor, I'm DeLoss Yankee saying watch your ends. We'll be back in studio tomorrow.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.